Negi Haruba somehow wrote a compelling character who every Ranger Reject fan seems to love. But why is it that Hisui is such a great character? It could be who she is as a character. It could be just how raw this character looks. I personally think it's a mixture of both of these. I think Yato probably agrees.
I absolutely agree, and thank you for inviting me to chat about Ranger Reject today, PapaTraffy, and more specifically, Hisui, one of the coolest characters in the series. Today we'll be diving into all things Hisui Kanon.
But hey friends, it's good to see you again. If you enjoy the video and are a fan of Ranger Reject, why not like and subscribe to both me and Yato? We'll give you all of the Ranger Reject content you could ever need. Hisui is one of those characters that you really can't help but to like. She comes off as cold, but you're able to quickly see what kind of character she really is. That makes it pretty understandable why she's such a fan favorite.
Since her introduction, I'll say I don't remember if I was immediately a fan. I thought she looked cool, and seeing her in the first Dragon Keeper banquet was pretty telling of what type of character she would be. The anime has kind of given her a beautified treatment, but in the manga I remember her looking a bit more rough, or feral I should say. That could be just because of Negi's earlier art style. In the banquet though, she had a rougher appearance. I believe she was the one who spoke the least also, and she was the only character not shown wearing their usual ranger outfit. She struck me as someone who doesn't exactly follow all the rules and likely has a I do what I want attitude. It's a little later in the Balong exam arc where we get to see a little more of that personality pushed through. She's someone with a dark and troubled past. We'll get to that later, but during the Balong exam, you can kind of see some of the hints. Hisui isn't interested in playing with the colorless cadets who are hoping to become rangers one day. She even says she doesn't want any new recruits. And after day one of the exam, Nadeshiko slips and asks how she's feeling about this year's recruits. I say slip because everyone present knows about Hisui's past, and that asking her about new recruits is a bit of a sore spot, but she actually does admit to being interested in at least one new recruit this time, to everyone's surprise.
In these early arcs, Hisui plays a much smaller role. This is our introduction to her character, but the way that Negi writes her, you can tell she's going to be someone much more important. At this point though, we don't know exactly how. I'll say up until this point in the story, I wasn't too impressed by her character. That's really only because we don't know enough about her.
At the end of the exam, we see all of the examiners discussing the results and who should go where, and they're shocked again when Hisui says Green Battalion will be taking D in Usakubo, and it's revealed by Suzukiri whispering in her ear that an executive had wiped out her entire battalion in the past.
An event that we will come to learn defines her as a character and how she interacts with the members of the Green Battalion.
During the Dreamy School life arc, we really got to see a different side to Hisui, and from then on she becomes a much better character. Not to say she was bad before, but in the Balong exam she kind of plays a background role as one of the 20 or so characters involved. In the following arc though, she is one of 5 to 7 main characters. Before they enter the school, she welcomes Green Battalion's 2 new recruits, and since they aren't able to take action unless an executive is on the move, she has D and Usakubo do small tasks around the garrison and bosses them around. While D isn't pleased to find out his job currently consists of taking out the trash and Green Keeper is nowhere to be found, we learn that Green Battalion only consists of 4 members, including them and Hisui. Sort of feels like a big sister character to Usakubo and D currently. When they reach the school that's used as the central location of the arc, Hisui continues to take the lead since she's helping Green keep his identity a secret, but she comes face to face with both a former Green mate and a divine tool that belonged to another. All of Hisui's team had been believed to be dead, so she appears to let her guard down when approaching Wakaba, only to have him try and land a sneak attack on her. She attacks Wakaba with no restraint, believing him to be the executive Magatia, and then she made it clear that her goal was to kill him because she thought Magatia was using Wakaba's body as an advantage over her personally. She said Wakaba took his duties seriously back in the day and had a bright future, but it's later that she falls prey to Magatia's spell in the school and becomes a normal high school girl while Wakaba toyed with her and tried to kill her. She later snaps out of it when Wakaba has her pinned down and kicks her to wake her up, and then together they defeat Wakaba. A little later on, she faces off against Magatia and loses, but before being killed, she's saved by Chidori and gets to deliver one of the final blows and remembers the old members of her old battalion.
This entire arc mainly focuses on Hisui and her trauma. More than that though, it informs us as to why the Green Battalion is so small. The Green Battalion are the ones who handle the actual danger. They are the ones who hunt down the remaining executives, which causes them to have a high mortality rate. This affects both Chidori and Hisui as they prefer to keep the Green Battalion small to reduce the amount of lives taken. In this arc, we get to see how Hisui handles that, which in turn gives us a deeper look into her character. Hisui is traumatized by the death of her comrades. She's traumatized by losing out on her childhood. This makes it easier for Magacha to take advantage of her. The Dreamy School arc is the perfect place for her to overcome her issues. Magacha gives her an out. He gives her the perfect way to relive her childhood, only being overcome because of the help of D.
Hisui's backstory is one showing us of how she became a child soldier who entered the Rangers and flew through everything in her way to achieve her rank. Her home and family were destroyed by an invader, and she was taken in by her neighbor, and she tried to, live a normal life, but could never really fit in. Simply hearing other children at school play pretend, acting like Rangers and invaders set her off, reminding her of the day that her life changed forever. A big part of her backstory also meshes with one of her other relationships with another character, that being Ishikawa, the old man cadet from the battalion exams that died. Back in the day, when her home was destroyed, it was young Ishikawa who pulled her out of the rubble, and since then, it seems like they've kept somewhat in contact, but one day a member of the IRA saw her talking to Ishikawa and started preaching about invaders, and she proceeded to beat him up. It was this event that led Hisui to join the Rangers, and she worked her way up to junior first class, setting the record for being the youngest to graduate the battalion exams. Hisui made a name for herself and would eventually have to deal with Ishikawa's death by Peltrola's hand, which enraged her because he managed to escape. There was a moment in the Dreamy School arc where Wakaba had spoken about the school being a paradise for children to live, like kids, and that children in the real world were dropping out of school to become Rangers, and Hisui was someone who lived that exact life that he was speaking of.
Hisui's backstory plays a big part in how her character is displayed. She comes off as rough because that's how she's had to live. She has only existed with anger in her heart, anger that she wasn't able to overcome until D saved her. Hisui's relationship with D is phenomenal and only develops more as the story goes on, something that we see when she tells D that she knows what he is and still accepts him, even though it goes against her very being. This is her growth as a character. She was able to acknowledge the words that D said and continue to grow fond of him, even though she knows he's an invader. I think a big part of this is she's able to acknowledge that D and the other invaders aren't the real threat. They aren't the ones who took everything from her. They are simply pawns to the executives and now the Rangers. Because of this, she was able to show him forgiveness and remain friends with him regardless of what he is.
If you're watching this video, then clearly you're a Ranger Reject fan, and I think it goes without saying that you're probably also a fan of Hisui, and I mean, who wouldn't be really? We get to see her character a ton, and she's easily top 3 coolest characters in the story, from her random axe kicks to her incredible divine tool replica that can just bite and erase matter, to those great moments where she either lets her guard down a little or bonds with D. It's safe to say, we all love Hisui.
Hisui is such a phenomenal character because she isn't one-dimensional. Upon meeting her, she comes off as your typical tsundere, but that quickly changes. We get to see more of who she is and why she is the way that she is. Then we get to see her character evolve and flourish. I think there's been a huge focus on Hisui's character development in the story more than anyone else besides D. This allows us to become more attached to her. It allows the fans to love her as a character.
Once again, I'd like to thank my boy Traffy for inviting me for this, and sorry the video was late, guys, that's my fault. If this is somehow your first time seeing Traffy's content, then go check him out, man. Watch his other videos and subscribe to his channel. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate that, Yato. Definitely go check out his channel. It'll be linked in the description. We'll have to bring you back for another one. As always though, friends, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more Ranger Reject content, feel free to like and subscribe. Otherwise, peace.